Ladies and gentlemen, we now move on to our event's enlightening session, Leadership Talks, Breaking Barriers, Building Bridges. In this segment, we delve into the essence of effective leadership in today's dynamic landscape. Our esteemed panelists are poised to share their profound insights and experiences, illuminating how they've navigated challenges, shattered stereotypes, and championed inclusive leadership. Get ready to be inspired as we uncover the transformative power of leadership in forging paths to progress and parity. We have with us Mr. Ravi Kumar, the CEO of Cognizant, Mr. Anil Chadha, Divisional Chief Executive of ITC Hotels, Mr. Hitendra Dave, the CEO of HSBC India, and Ms. Kami Viswanathan, Senior Vice President, Middle East, Indian Subcontinent and Africa Operations, FedEx. They will be engaging in a compelling conversation moderated by Shireen Bhan, Managing Editor of CNBC-TV18. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a warm round of applause as they join us on stage.
Please do join us on stage. Ravi, Anil, Ambassador, and Kami, Hitendra, Ambassador, right here. How are you? Oh, good to see you, Ravi. Good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. Hi, Anil. How are you? Good to see you. Come. Yeah, you've got everybody here. I will sit. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming to the close of this edition of Future Female Forward. Post this conversation, we have our final list of awardees, and then we'll get to the drinks and the dinner. So bear with us for just a little bit longer. But it's so wonderful to have each one of you joining us here this evening. It's a pleasure to have you amongst us. Ravi, I'm going to start by asking you, because as I said, this is an issue that has to be addressed at a leadership level. It is as much top-down as it is bottoms-up. And I know that this is something that you have made your mandate to create an equal opportunity workforce. And you've set yourself some pretty aggressive targets as well in terms of diversity and balance. Let's hear from you on what you are doing at Cognizant, what's working, what you intend changing.
So thank you, Shireen.
It's on. Go ahead.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk to you. It's a wonderful event, and I'm excited to be here.
1 minute. I think they've...
Hello.
Yeah.
This works? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. The tech services industry has a pretty good diversity ratio because we get a good feeder of very diverse talent from schools which we hire. So the NASSCOM estimate says that the tech services space has 36% women. Cognizant is actually a leader in it. In fact, we are the top company. We have 40% diversity. And a variety of things have actually contributed to it. Counterintuitively, our presence in small cities gives us much more diversity. I have two centers in Coimbatore and Kochi, where my diversity is 48 to 49%. So we're pretty close to the 50% mark. So the feeder from schools is a very important thing. But that's a natural feeder. It's evolved over the years for the industry. The second most important thing is we have a top-down mandate as much as there's a bottom-up feeder. Right from the board, all the way from the management and the leadership, we have a lot of diversity attached to it. The biggest challenge for the industry, and I think it's probably true for many industries in India, is the diversity falls off in the middle, and then it further falls off as you get to the leadership. So at Cognizant, we actually run a program called Shakti, which is a comprehensive way of covering the whole thing. So I'll be very quick on this. We have a program called RISE, which allows us to mentor and curate the experiences for mid-managers to go to the senior leadership. Then we have something called Propel, and these words are, in some ways representative of what...
Shakti, Rise and Propel.
Yeah,
okay.
And Propel actually is, we have 1,500 women in the mid-management who aspire to go to the senior leadership, and we actually do a phenomenal job of, equipping them to get there. The third actually is a returnship program. That's a big issue in India. I mean, as much as there is a social net, and I think counterintuitively again, I live in the US, there isn't a social net, but you have more representation of women in the mid-careers, if I may. It should be much more because you have a social net here, there is a lot of support system, but women walk away and they don't come back. So we run a returnship program where we train and we do that in a paid way. It's a paid exercise and we reskill and bring them up to speed so that there is parity when they come in. Not coming in is not enough. They need to have parity. And we almost, in a green channel, anybody who leaves us performing, we almost give them a green channel to come back. And we use this 12-week program to bring them up to speed and get them in. And then we have a program at the bottom which is called Be Gritty, and it is for the school graduates, the ones who come from school. We want them to be ambitious right there. I mean, that's where you have to start so that you don't give it away. And then you move forward. And we are also one of the employers who has a menopause policy. Very few companies in India have. We have a menopause policy where we have a psychological safety net. You have a psychological safe culture to discuss and actually feel safe about it, and we have a flexible workplace to support it, because that, it's a double whammy, because you're moving up the career and you're going through a biological clock. And I think we do that in a very sensitive way, and we want the allyship of men to understand and not have a unconscious bias around it. So we push that, and this is a policy I'm very excited about. We launched it last year.
Well, I have to say that this is something that I truly believe that, I would not have imagined that I would be having a conversation with a CEO, a male CEO, on a platform like this, talking about having a policy in place addressing the issue of menopause, because even women don't talk about it. So it's really heartening to note that this is something that is being acknowledged and there is an intervention to be able to address this, and I think that truly is a mark of a listening and a sensitive organization. So thank you, Ravi, for sharing that with us. But Anil, I want to pick up on the point that Roshni made, that very often the interventions are almost as if you are trying to fix a women's problem when you actually have an organizational issue that requires redressal, that requires reorientation, re-engineering, rewiring. At ITC, I know that this is again something that you've been championing across various divisions within the organization. What's been the big takeaway? What's been the big lesson?
So, hello. So diversity, equity and inclusion is certainly a high priority area for us as well at ITC, and we've spent, we have a very firm policy on these subjects, and every division of ours has done a lot of work towards this particular area. And I think I'll talk about ITC Hotels because I represent the ITC Hotels, and I'm if I was just to give you an example, 30% of my senior leadership team is women. And this was an industry where only the executive housekeeper probably was a lady. Today you see general managers, our corporate chef is a lady. Somebody I think spoke about Bharat Mandapam. I must tell you, the entire catering was done by this lady chef, the biggest ever catering which was done in India. And Mr. Kant is sitting here, who kind of guided us. But this was led by one of our corporate chefs, Manisha Basin, my head of development. So I think it's all about creating the environment. It's about the ecosystem. It's about the culture, to make it not just a great place to work, but also a very safe place to work. So we have put in a lot of effort in this particular area to make sure that you create the environment. Our policies, whether it's flexi working hours, whether it's hybrid work system, whether it is maternity leave, whether it is extended maternity leave, whether women crèche services in hotels, whether it's crèche services in factories, etc. I think these all really allow you. They help a woman who has many more responsibilities as well. So that's a role that they play, and I think you need to help them achieve that. So there's a lot of work that we do with them, and I think we also have a group which actually listens to them. So when these policies are framed, you listen to them and you understand what is it exactly that they need to make it a happy workplace for them, and which allows them to do both the roles equally well.
Well, yes, the feedback is very important because policies should work for people and not the other way around. But Ambassador, let's address what's happening within the EU at this point in time and how much of a priority this is, and what do you see as the path forward in terms of being able to forge common interventions across the EU?
Thank you, Shirin. And first of all, I wanted to say we don't see the stars. I saw stars in the eyes of many of these women achievers tonight. Yes. It's a bit fresh on stage, but I felt a lot of energy, fire yes. in many of those people. So it's and women, it's fantastic, I must say. And I can understand and relate to what the Minister Irani said about, you may have reports about gender gap and what is important, what people are doing, and in this country is quite amazing. So thank you very much for organizing such events, because I think it speaks a volume about the thrust and energy of women in this country. In Europe, I mean, we've been, and I think it's around the world, we still trail behind what we should do with respect to women. I think there is still a culture, a male culture of entitlement across the board in administrations, in private companies and around the world, and even in arts and in business. And I think we still need to fight that. There is an orange poster on the door of my office. And it's also a way to remind myself, to remind everyone that you have to care and act for women, with women. At the EU, we have developed different kinds of policies, and I'm just this week, the European Council adopted a bill, a law, yes. on domestic violence against women, which shows that we all have something to do. Yeah. When we look at our foreign policy, we have a commitment to have 85% of all our actions which are directed towards empowering women. So whatever we do, we have a gender marker, a gender approach to whatever we do. And we, of course, have different kind of activities that we support around the world. It's under the Gender Action Plan, GAP. And within that framework, we're also very active here with our partners in India. And there are different ways of line of actions on gender-based violence, but also empowering women in the field of digital and green transition. And by the way, we are funding an NGO, a CSO, that has won a prize at COP27 precisely for empowering women and facilitating green transition. So there is a lot of potential here, but also we have to walk our talk. And walking our talk is also in our own organizations. In the European institutions, there is about 50% female in position of middle management and senior management. It's been a long haul, and it's been only possible because there was positive discrimination. If there was no such a policy, we will not be there. It shows that we need to press. It does not fall from the sky. Yeah. Yeah. And for all the determination of the woman, all this action, we don't have to hand down, as someone said. It's not about pitying. It's about allowing, enabling. Yeah. And I think this is what we are trying to develop in our own organizations. We have a group in the European Diplomatic Service called the Women's Diplomat in Action. So, and I can tell you they are very much in action.
Well, that's good to hear.
No, but it's also a way of engaging also with other women diplomats from other countries. We also here have in Delhi, the European member states, the 27 member states, we have a designated EU gender champion. So every 6 months they rotate. For now it's Italy, before it was France, next will be the Netherlands. And it creates a platform for engagement with the civil society, with art, culture, Indian interlocutors and organizations to promote also women action, sensitize. So there are many, many ways to engage. And if I were not enough convinced, I have two little daughters at home that remind me every day that I should support women empowerment, and even if I would not do it, they take their own empowerment in their hands.
Well, you don't just have an orange board then in your office, you actually have the real thing, the real deal. But Kami, you know, at FedEx, explain to me what you've been able to do in terms of interventions that have in fact challenged the status quo and have made a positive impact.
Sure, thanks, Shireen.
Yeah.
So I think first of all, diversity overall and gender diversity in particular is very strategic for us at FedEx. And if you think about all the supply chain disruptions that we've seen over the last 3 years, the topic has now become a boardroom conversation. And in India particularly, we're seeing a big push towards, you know, businesses setting up manufacturing and exports here, the whole technology and innovation ecosystem, talent from India serving global enterprises and so forth. So I think there's a real opportunity in logistics for us to connect the dots. And to connect the dots, you need a diverse leadership team. In logistics and transportation, it's been a male-dominated industry.
Yes.
So there's, you know, whether you're talking about frontline workers or women leaders, you know, we've not seen that many examples. And even customers and buyers have been mostly men. But I think that's changing. That's changing, and the pace of that change needs to accelerate. At FedEx particularly, innovation and collaboration are how we function and succeed. And I think for true collaboration, you need to be able to leverage inclusion. And not just diversity and representation, but also bringing those voices in and really true inclusion. So when we think about how do we increase women in leadership, we think about the entire pipeline. So we have to start with where it begins, which is increasing the pool of women candidates applying for jobs. And I think there, a lot of our focus has been around describing what career pathways could look like in this industry. So stereotypes are removed from the equation. And even the equal opportunity statement, we make a big deal about that. And I think it's important to keep reinforcing that message when we recruit. And I think the other major fall-off point for women is in the mid-management, like you alluded to. And I think there, again, talking about customized career paths for women who maybe want to create some degree of flexibility, but not have it seen as a career-limiting move when they come back, when they're ready to engage fully. And I think also building that, that environment where men and women leaders in the organization and team members are aware of their unconscious biases when they deal with these situations. And providing that sense of mentorship and sponsorship for women to move into senior management. So I think both men and women leaders need to make bets on women. And I think that's what we try to encourage through these programs that we have of mentorship and male allies. So that we have more representation of women moving into senior management. The last thing I'd say is in terms of role modeling. And I think we have a lot of senior women leaders, and we kind of keep putting them in front of our teams to say that this is possible, and this is real, and this could be you. So I think those are the gamut of sort of interventions that we focus on. And for us, it's a journey. It's a journey. 33% of our board is women. In India, we have 25% in women in management. So there's more that we can do, and we're always striving to do.
Yes, it is a work in progress, as we've heard from pretty much everybody who's come on and spoken. But Hitendra, you know, to the point that Ravi, Kami, and the ambassador as well as Anil were making, and I know that this is something that you're focusing on to ensure that you have a larger funnel at the very start. So you are looking at being able to tap female talent at schools and colleges, and that is going to be a big focus area for you at HSBC.
Yeah, no, I think just before I go to answer your question directly, I think, you know, we are one of the most global companies in the world, and the board was in India just a couple of months back, and I think it's 50% of our board is women. And within that, they're from all kinds of nationalities. So you're getting diversity on the gender side, and you're getting diversity. So that's where it is starting at HSBC. I just wanted to make that point, right? And then it sort of flows through the executive management. But given the challenges sometimes, if you say, listen, 50% of your top executives need to be women, it becomes next to impossible because there's not enough candidates, you know, and we spoke, it's not always possible. So almost all firms, I think Ravi mentioned about IT services, but it's equally true of banks, consulting companies, etc., are really saying, let's build that pipeline so that over the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, the challenge of today, which is there isn't enough senior women executives available, even if you just took a hard line stance that I will be 50-50 or whatever. So I think at the engineering colleges, but more particular in the MBA colleges, there is a race out there. Anybody who's gone recruiting personally, you see a woman, you just say, come here, come here, come here. So, you know, so we'll have to find a better way of doing it, because this can't be the way. But yes, the only way to do this at scale is to go younger. Right? Go to Lady Shri Ram College, go to Shri Ram College of, oh sorry, not Shri Ram College of Commerce, my apologies. Go to Stephens or wherever, I mean, these are the places. And you find, the other thing I would also say, right, this discussion, because obviously there were unconscious biases and the data says so and the facts say so, when we talk to younger people, actually speaking, this is very natural to them. So I think as we roll forward in time, the minds will be much more open. We won't have to go through discussions and you know what you have started wonderfully, which is having open, transparent conversations where this is coming into boardrooms and committees and so on and so forth. I think will become easier. I think the last point I would say is that every organization today, I'm sure everybody on this panel will agree, is trying to make sure that it is seen as an organization that wants to welcome women and will treat them in a manner which is, you know, to the word, it's not something you're doing as a favor to yourself. You're doing it because you know their participation in your workforce will result in better outcomes.
No, absolutely. And, you know, very quickly, Ravi, I want to understand from you, you know, now we're talking about living in an AI era and an AI age and so on and so forth. Do you believe that this is in fact going to provide a much more level playing field, or do you believe it's going to do the reverse?
In fact, Shireen, I wrote an article about how the age of AI is going to create a natural sponsorship for diversity and inclusivity. You know, since the Industrial Revolution, if you look at it, solving problems was the endeavor in workplaces. And there was only one cognitive diversity which got into workplaces because of solving problems. I think the cognitive diversity of workplaces will change because solving problems will be an endeavor of machines and people together, humans. Finding the next new problem is going to be a much bigger human endeavor. As that happens, you just don't hire engineers even into a tech services company. I mean, 40% of the code is going to be written by AI. You want to hire a much diverse cognitive diversity. That will lend by itself to more diversity in workplaces. And cognitive diversity means you need more women at workplaces. I mean, we are not doing it because it is just a moral imperative. We're doing it because it is a strategic imperative for the business. We build products and services. And we are a microcosm of the society. We want to be the microcosm. I mean, every enterprise wants to be a microcosm of the society. So you want to actually build products which will be good for consumption, which means it should be represented well. So AI, in some ways, will create that unique opportunity to create the diversity. Going back to what he said, which is you could go to Lady Shri Rams and hire. You could go to other non-technical disciplines and hire. The second I would say is the pivot to a virtual hybrid workplace is also a great way of actually building more diversity, because by choice you will get more women participating in the workplace because there is more. And I also believe that flexibility in workplaces is not in odds with productivity. If you have flexibility well designed and you are a good inclusive workplace, it will actually create much more diversity. So I actually think this is a unique opportunity for the world to pivot in a direction where diversity is much more natural, and you're not forcing it in. And that's why I'm actually super optimistic about where we would head to with AI around it.
That was the point that Dave was making as well. Anil, speaking of pivots, what's the next pivot for ITC? Very quickly.
Well, for ITC, I think as you spoke about, diversity is definitely one of our target areas, and all of us at the senior leadership are definitely promoting that entire culture and the environment to make sure. And I would agree with you and the other panelists as well. I think it's important to build the bank. It's important to create the right environment, because if you're looking at just a number that it has to be like that, it can't be like that. It has to be the entire culture, and you have to take it and do the entire movement right from the top. And that's what we are regularly focusing on, especially if the services industry, if you see, I think the warmth and the care and the love and the affection that lady employees bring, it's so critical in our jobs that you're able to encourage them and make them grow. And nothing gives me more joy than seeing a lady general manager who's grown up from the system, within the system. She joined us as a management trainee, and we made her grow as a general manager. And we look forward to giving her more opportunities that she can grow even higher and take on much more senior positions.
Well, Kami and gentlemen, we would have liked to continue this conversation, but we are running out of time. But I think what is instructive, ladies and gentlemen, from what we've heard from each of these leaders here today is that this is an opportunity. Use of technology is an opportunity. AI could, in fact, provide that much-needed level playing field. And targets are one thing, but creating an inclusive culture, creating a culture that nurtures, fosters, encourages inclusion and diversity, that takes time. It takes effort and it takes commitment. Thank you for showing your commitment to the cause, and thank you for joining us here this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for our leaders here this evening. Thank you so much for your time.
A huge thank you to our esteemed speakers for such an enlightening leadership and panel discussion. Your insights and experiences have undoubtedly inspired many.